And we saw you at the Metropolitan Ministries talking about blockchain. Is that what you chatted about? Like, what did you guys discuss?
Yeah, that was the main gist of our conversation on stage was, what we're kind of seeing in blockchain and cryptocurrency specifically, because Mark was on stage with us, we centered it a lot around payments. And then just some of the interesting things that we're watching kind of happen in this space, as well as a focus on how businesses can integrate blockchain up into their existing business systems. So that's the software that we actually are building at BlockSpaces. And so that was kind of the focus of the conversation, is how this is becoming more and more used by businesses and some of those use cases around that and some of the complexities with integrating that technology up into existing business systems.
I want to hear more, like just that.
Sure, because that seems really nerdy.
No, I feel like it's so interesting, like hearing all that. I'm like, okay, like, what'd you say? How do businesses use that in like an everyday business? How do they use cryptocurrency or blockchain in their everyday business?
Well, I mean, so first a little backstory about BlockSpaces. We opened in 2017 as really this kind of culmination of many years of being in this space. Both Gabe and I have been in since 2012, 2013. So a long, long time, and we've watched a lot of stuff evolve. Gabe kind of started the meetups here in 2013 that still are active today, very active, and started really building this community, this local community of entrepreneurs and people that were interested in this technology. And it just kind of blew up from there. And in 2017, we opened BlockSpaces, is really originally almost like an incubator for blockchain projects and things that were going on. People just having like a mind hive of people that felt the same way and were working on kind of similar projects.
And wanting to learn more, like even people that aren't very technical, right? But they've heard a lot about this stuff and and so we try to approach it to where we can meet all levels of experience or knowledge and try to inform as much as possible. And we still do a lot of that today. I still run the Tampa-based Bitcoin meetup groups, and we continue to foster that kind of learning process because there's still there's a lot to learn about it, and it has its own like vernacular as well. So you have to learn all the terminology and what they mean, and then how does that conceptually fit into all these other things. So we understand that it's there's a learning process that's involved with this, but we see this as the future. So and it's come way faster than we had previously thought. So we think it's really important.
So from a non-technical person perspective, right? My understanding of blockchain is really like a digital imprint of purchases or transactions that's happened, right? Is that
That's
like
fair?
that's
totally
pretty
fair. That's pretty good.
Okay. What else am I missing on that description?
Not a ton. Not a ton. I mean, at a very, very high level, that's pretty much it. I think probably the most important thing to understand, we talk a lot about blockchain and it being the underlying infrastructure of cryptocurrency. But it is really important to understand like Bitcoin in order to understand like what actually happened there with the invention of Bitcoin and what that has actually led to.
That's the magic sauce here is to understand that prior to Bitcoin, there was a long-standing computer science problem, and we all kind of generally understand this, where information can be copied and copied and copied, right? Copy and paste. We're all very, and so you send that, all digital information's kind of, it doesn't act like a property, right?
Right.
With the invention of Bitcoin, it's orchestrated a mechanism to where it's created something in the digital space that can act as physical property. Like you can own something and you can't copy and paste it ad infinitum. And you can prove ownership over a digital thing. So that's what's new here, is that before we didn't have digital properties. Now we do, because of the invention of Bitcoin, because of the orchestration of how blockchain works and keeps those records of transactions.
Hold on, digital property, meaning like, this is my idea and I'm writing it down kind of thing? Is that what you
Yeah,
mean?
well, like think about it in the terms of like, we always use it to think about it like in terms of like a photograph. Like if I emailed you a photograph of myself,
Right,
you could email it to 5,000 million other people, right?
right.
If I send you Bitcoin, I lose ownership of it and it transfers to you.
Like
So
a
just like me literally handing you a physical
Oh.
dollar.
Wow, okay,
So it acts like a physical dollar in a digital way,
wow. Okay.
which is, it literally solved a computer science problem.
Right.
Yeah, the computer science problem, technically, if we want to get nerdy here,
Yeah.
is the Byzantine generals problem, or known as the double spending problem, which outlines this problem where digital information can be copied and copied and copied. And nobody solved that until Bitcoin came along. Bitcoin actually solved that problem. It was a long-standing computer science problem for 70 years.
Wow,
So that's
crazy.
it's an invention. Yeah, it's an invention or discovery, depending
Right.
on how you want to look at it. And it utilizes, over 50 years of other technologies that have been, very well tested and invented, and kind of just coalesced and put together in this unique way that now solves this problem, that now has made this whole new world of possibilities, which is now kind of referred to as Web 3.
Yep.
So you have web, it's like a new generation of internet interactivity, right? Web 1 was the Yahoos and the Mosaic browser of the world, where you can read information that's posted online. Web 2 is more like interactive, like real-time interactive, like Facebooks and Twitters, where you are giving and taking information to a huge audience.
Yeah, and that can, in a business environment, that translates to things like QuickBooks and NetSuite and all of these business tools that businesses use today to run their businesses.
Right.
Yeah. And Web 3 now adds this new dimension of property ownership in the digital sense. So now we can have, we can transact value in a way online that wasn't possible before. So that adds a whole new dimension of discovery, of innovation, of entrepreneurship, of all kinds of things and processes that we're used to doing in ways, or not even having the ability to do in ways that we have now, because we have the technology to enable that.
And so one of the big problems that we saw when we opened BlockSpaces, we started to have a lot of business come to us for consulting and custom development. How can I integrate this into my business and all this kind of stuff? And at that time, there was really no place to go to do that. Blockchain developers are very, very difficult to find. There's very few of them on the planet. And so businesses are left with just bringing in people like us or people like IBM or whatever to like stand up these small proof of concepts, and then they kind of walk away, when really those businesses want to have like an internal tool that their developers that are in-house can just leverage these technologies and flow them up into their existing business technologies like QuickBooks and NetSuite and 365. So that's what we're building. We're building a software that's a connectivity layer between blockchain and Web 2. And so you can technically, flow Bitcoin payments up into your QuickBooks. And so it seamlessly kind of creates that connection point. That is what we're developing now. And it also hides all of the very unique complexities with deploying these solutions, because they all have a very unique infrastructure. So we manage all of that for our customers too.
Okay, it's like an interface. It's
That's
like a connector.
Yeah.
Like if I'm playing with like connector sets or blocks, it just like connects the two pieces.
Right.
together.
That's right.
Like,
That's
yeah.
right. There's a software right now called Plaid that you probably never heard of. But every single time that you make a payment, like if you do Venmo or anything like that, and you hit that button and it connects to your bank and it goes back and forth and it does all of that, it's using Plaid. So the Plaid is a connector between the bank and that frontline application, right? That's what we're doing except for blockchain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Where do you see blockchain or Bitcoin in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. I think it's going to be, I think it's inevitable that everybody obviously is moving to Web3. Blockchain is the kind of the infrastructure layer of Web3. It makes all these things possible. How does it do that? Well, for example, last night I was on another panel with a company here locally that's doing autonomous vehicles. And one of the questions from the audience was like, you're putting forth these autonomous vehicles, you're putting forth these fleets, but it has to connect to all of these different connection points and stuff. What do you do to make sure that you're creating an ecosystem around this autonomous vehicle? And the guy answered, I can't remember how he answered, but I kind of piggyback on that and said, well, that is what blockchain does. Blockchain really shines when it's in that kind of environment. Because blockchain is the thing that takes an autonomous vehicle and makes it to where it drives itself to the mechanic. It pays payments by itself. It facilitates all of these things. It's its own crypto wallet. Blockchain is the thing that kind of underlines IoT and AI and artificial intelligence. And so that is why Kathy Wood just moved here from New York, and she has these 5 emerging technologies that she really focuses on, blockchain being at the center, because without blockchain or something like blockchain, those things can't truly operate autonomously. They have to have some sort of human interaction. Blockchain kind of alleviates that.
That is really cool. No, that was a really awesome, visual way to describe it, because I would love to have a car that took itself to the mechanic.
That's right.
Paid, so I didn't have to worry about
That's
it.
right.
Please. Yeah.
If you even own the car, we get to a point where you can have a fleet of fully autonomous vehicles where you don't have to own a car. You just summon it when you want to go from point A to point B.
Right.
And it figures out how to orchestrate its fuel, how to orchestrate its mechanics, and monitor that itself. So a truly fully autonomous system.
Yeah.
That's like, what do you go on and find, if you're trying to rent a house or a Airbnb? That's what I think of. So it's like Airbnb for vehicles, or it could be
more
even
high-tech.
way more high tech.
That'd be like an automatic Uber. An Uber without the corporation in the center.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool.
I think it's amazing, and I'm so happy that you're here in Tampa, bringing technology to Tampa.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I got a pitch that we did raise 2 rounds of capital last year, and with that became one of the largest, or certainly most well-funded female-led blockchain companies in the United States. So, gotta always kind of push that, because blockchain and crypto specifically have this very kind of bro culture reputation that we work very hard to disseminate and get rid of, because 40% of our workforce right now, our team right now is women, people of color, United States veterans. And so bringing more women into high tech and emerging tech is a really strong focus of mine. So I'm really happy to be on this podcast, and hopefully your audience will be interested in it as well.
Well, how are you trying to bring more women to the tech space? Speaking of that.
Well, I think just actually breaking down those barriers and saying, it was interesting because we tried to raise capital for probably 18 months before we finally raised, and it was a lot of, what is a woman doing, leading a blockchain company in Tampa, Florida, right? And it was a big obstacle to get over, but I actually ended up reaching out to a VC that I had read about in Forbes, Ali Rosenthal, who's a former Facebook software engineer, and she has a fund called Lead Out Capital that invests in underrepresented founders. So whether it's women or geographically, I hit on it's like a poster child. Lead Out Capital, like a woman in blockchain in Tampa, what is that? And so they actually led our first round and our second round. And so, I think that just continually breaking down those barriers and, showing that it's not just a bro culture. It's not just something that, it's for guys to make a lot of money. There's actually value here, and value that translates in a really meaningful way, I think, to women. I think women find different things of value in this space, and without understanding that, there's companies right now that are using blockchain to do things like track, human trafficking, and things that resonate, I think, with women are just really important. And so always holding that to the forefront, making sure women feel comfortable and that they have a place here is just a very important thing for the whole industry.
Yeah, an interesting use case to piggyback on that is we talked to an organization that's working with spousal abuse women, that are experiencing spousal abuse, but they can't leave their situation because they don't have access to funds. But now they're using Bitcoin as a way that they can start collecting some kind of honeypot that they can eventually leave and be able to support themselves to some degree. And you can get donations anonymously, and kind of have they can retain the ownership over it and control without it kind of getting in the wrong hands.
How does it positively affect the sex trafficking piece? Like that's like a huge, I don't know, like heart wrencher for me, right? That whole thing.
It actually comes down to like tracking of the money, right? Because so much money is involved in this, and there's a company called Chain Analysis that actually does nothing but analyze crypto transactions and how they are easily traceable back to nefarious activities. So, people think, Bitcoin is this kind of anonymous transaction. I can do this anonymously, like what Gabe said. But on the flip side of that, it's totally traceable. So if you know how to trace those transactions, it's very foolish to do transactions like that for things that are nefarious.
Like that.
And so Chain Analysis actually was very paramount in helping the CIA break up one of the biggest child sex trafficking rings in the world just recently, just because they were able to trace those transactions. So
yeah, let them keep thinking that it can't be
that's
traced.
right. That's absolutely correct.
No, that's exactly what the FBI has said.
He's been called into the FBI Secret Service.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Stop it. Can you share? Can you share anything
they didn't make
about
me
that?
sign anything. So I guess so.
That is super cool.
It was it was not that fun at first, but because like we were exactly. I mean, we were walking into our office one day, and these two gentlemen came up. We were waiting on the elevator, and these two gentlemen stepped up behind us. He said, "Are you Gabe Higgins?" And like this real stern voice. And they were plain clothes.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what were they wearing?
No, they were
plain clothes. So you
really
wouldn't suspect him, and I'm like, yes. And then he flashed his Secret Service badge at me, and I'm like, okay, I didn't do it.
Just because I read you with Bitcoin, I did swear.
So he was like, no, you're not in trouble or anything. We just want to ask you a couple questions because we're working on a case, and we're trying to track this guy's transactions, and they actually got a hold of the guy's computers and had access to the keys to get to the funds, but they didn't know how to input it into the wallet. So they needed technical experience, and they just looked up. I guess they just Googled
we Googled
Tampa Bitcoin, and my face comes up.
I know that's a good thing. Is that a good thing? I don't know.
Sure is good.
Yeah, except when you're a target.
Yeah, exactly. Except when the Secret Service comes to you.
So they have an office down here in Tampa, so we walked over and helped them out.
Nice. That's awesome.
Well, I think what you both are doing is amazing. I'm so happy that you're in Tampa and creating this culture, female-led culture, and just bringing awareness about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and everything just to the world. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for
today.
educating us today.
Yeah, absolutely. You can. Everybody's welcome to join us on our meetups. We do virtual and in-person meetups around the Bay Area. Actually, this Sunday is the celebration of Bitcoin Pizza Day.
Oh, really?
So the story behind it is, the first real world transaction that's known, where Bitcoin was exchanged for a real world good was for 2 pizzas.
Oh.
It was
And
like
had to-
10,000
It
Bitcoin,
was 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas,
which is worth.
which at the time, you know, Bitcoin wasn't worth anything. So
Right,
it was
right.
literally, you know, just somebody like, hey, I'll give you 10,000 Bitcoin if you order me 2 pizzas.
Right.
Somebody was like, yeah, I'll do that.
That's
And,
cool.
you know, now 10,000 Bitcoin's worth,
A
I don't
lot.
know, like $30 million or something like
Wow.
that.
Stop
That's
it.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah, so there's actually a thing called the Bitcoin Pizza Index. It's like,
Yeah.
it's
It's,
like, if you
Well,
have that 10,000 Bitcoin.
How many pizzas did you get?
Yeah, it's really great.
So Tom Brady gave 63, what's the
For the
numbers?
ball.
Yeah.
For the ball.
Yeah, he was
sorry,
actually-
300 million. I was off by a factor
Wow. Oh my gosh.
of 10.
Yeah, it's
That's great.
sickening. Tom Brady.
Yes,
yeah,
Tom
he's-
Brady
He's involved in
gave-
NFTs and he gave, how many Bitcoin to the guy for?
63 is in my head, but I don't know.
I
if
know.
it's
Just 1
63.
Bitcoin. It
Yeah,
was
it was-
worth
oh,
Oh,
63,000.
that's what it
at the
was.
time.
1 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that still worth?
It's about
63
30
fluctuates,
today.
yeah?
It fluctuates.
Okay, I mean, 30 grand, I'll take it.
Yeah. I know.
30, 60 is fine. Okay. Yeah.
Not bad, not bad. Not bad tight.
This conversation has been amazing. Thank you
Awesome.
both
Thanks.
so
Thank you for
much.
having us.
Yeah.